Can't believe I gotta do this shit over again.
Hey!
Oh, move a second.
Hey, that's a yeehaw moment right there.
PQ here, PQ Speed Shop. Listen, it's been a while since I made a video, so I wanted to make sure I stopped in and let you know what's going on. I think I'm gonna entitle this episode, Wheelhouse Hell. And the reason why is because, let me tell you, I've been dealing with wheelhouses. I had some camera issues, so that's another reason why I hadn't made a video. So we got a new camera, got a new setup here. It should work pretty well. But the wheelhouses, inner and outer wheelhouses were the biggest headache I've had so far on this build. And let me show you. So over here, move this out of the way because that's for later part. These are the wheelhouses. And what we have over here, we got inner and outer wheelhouse, AMD. Inner and outer wheelhouse, Goodmark. Okay? Now, this part here, let me take this camera off so I don't have to keep carrying this tripod around. Give me a second. Alright, so these part here, these holes here are supposed to line up together. See how far apart they are? Same thing with down here. And I know people love the AMD, and hey, look, I've had good luck with a lot of their products. But when it comes to these wheelhouses, they're crap. And the reason I say that is because I think most people, when they do wheelhouses, they either just do an outer wheelhouse or they just do an inner. Maybe they put in a tub, mini tub in. They want to do the inner wheelhouse. Gotcha. When you're doing like I did, where I had to replace the frame, had to replace all the floors, you know, the whole thing, start from scratch. I don't know that the inner and outer separate. They've just been giving me headaches. I mean, it's been little. I mean, look, I bought, these are both for the driver's side. So I bought the inner and outer AMD after I bought the inner and outer of the Goodmark. And they don't fit much better. But this is the other side. This is the passenger side, Goodmark, inner and outer. Can you see that? They're lining up. They line up down there. These fit good. So is it hit or miss? Maybe. What I ended up doing, since I had to replace the inners and outers on both sides, I went to Dynacorn, and they have the inner and outer already welded together. And I can tell you what, it went straight in the car, no issues, lined up perfectly. I do a little bit of adjusting, but that was just basically pushing it up harder to get it in the right position. On these E-bodies, the floor comes back here. Hold on, let me see my camera. There we go. The floor comes down and there's a lip. And that lip marries up to the backside of the wheelhouses. These are already together. So I don't have to fuss with it. Line those up. I got it lined all the way around. Got it clamped up there. We're not welding anything yet because we're still putting stuff together. Look what we got. We got a quarter panel. Wow, huh? Quarter panel. The other part I've been working on is I got the donor piece. I think I told you in the last video. Donor piece of this inner channel that I got from a guy out in Missouri on a parts car. So he sent that in, and I had to weld it together on the inside. I'm not going to show you my nasty welds right now because they need to be ground down. But I welded down here, got it on the outside. So now that's a solid piece again, and it's got the holes already where they need to be. Everything's kind of lined up good. I have to do a little bit of grinding, like I said. That's it on that side. Everything else lined up pretty good. I'm kind of happy how this is meeting here with the sail panel. It needs to go a little bit that way, but just a smidge, not much. Learned a trick from another guy on YouTube. When I do get it finally where I need it to be and I weld it, you take some of that, you know, once you prime it, get your panel all done, take some of that seam sealer and you put it, you know, tape it on both sides and just leave that gap open, put a tiny bit of seam sealer down in there, kind of put your finger and wipe it down, and then pull the tape back, let it dry, and then you can prime over it again. That kind of fills that gap. Make sure no water gets down in there, because you're basically just spot welding in a couple spots there. So if there is any area where it get down, you want to make sure you seal it. This is fitting fairly well. Still have to do a little bit of massaging, a little bit of schmoozing on this to get it to fit right. But overall, it's fitting pretty good. You got the tail panel piece clipped on there. I had to weld a piece down in the back, and it's a little bent. I need to straighten it out before that'll fit in real well. And excuse my welds or anything you see here, but this needs to be flat, more flat than what it is. So I've got to take it on, put it on the bench, and bang that out a little bit to get it right. If you remember, I replaced the inner part of the door jamb here, the rocker panel, and this cowling piece that has the hinges on. Now this is not the original door. I got these doors from a gentleman up in Pennsylvania. They're real good shape, no rot. They're off of a 71 Challenger, which they should be the same. It might be a little bit different on how these things mount, but it doesn't matter. They're all interchangeable and they're all the same shape. Brand new hinges, but I'm having some fitment issues. And the fitment issues I'm having, I double checked my measurements again, and they're right. Measured from this side of the rocker panel down to the floor, this side of the rocker panel down to the floor. Everything's been on a jig. Everything's been put back in the same position it came off of. But you're dealing with aftermarket parts again. It's not. I got the hinges as far forward as I can get them at the moment, and nothing's welded in on the quarter panel. But I'm probably a 1/4 inch off. It needs to go forward another 1/4 inch, I think, to get the gap right between here. And I got a huge gap in the front. Yeah, I could probably drive a truck, put my finger through there. Don't like the way that's sitting. It's even worse on the bottom. There's a huge gap under the bottom I can fit my whole finger inside of. And of course this isn't all the way closed, but I don't really like how that gap is. It's fine up front here. It's not good in the back. Before I go wallowing out hinges or anything, we're gonna go ahead and sit on that for a while. I got the front fender on just to get fitment again. Everything's starting to look pretty good up in this area. I'm not too sad, because if you remember, I replaced this, and that was a concern for me because I wasn't sure, even though I took the measurements. Cutting that part out of the structure is kind of unnerving. But I had to replace both sides. It was rotted all the way through. But I don't have it welded at the top yet. It's just sheet metal screwed there because I don't have a windshield to check it, if you remember I said that. I know I've preached before in the past about saving your old parts. Always save your old parts, because you might have to, anything you cut off of the car, take off the car, not only do you have to find a place to put your new parts to store them, but you got to find a place to, if it's sheet metal you cut off, you can just throw it in a pile outside. You're not going to use it again. Water's definitely going to not hurt it. It's already rusted. But you have a place you can go back to and reference from time to time if you need so. I'm going to show you a perfect example here. This is the fender. This has been sitting outside my garage, been leaning up against the backside of my garage for, I don't know, a couple years, I think now at this point. But this fender, you can see why this fender needed to be replaced. And this is pretty much the status of this entire freaking car. All right, it's just horrible. These E-bodies were never great. They were horrible. So what I ended up doing is, this is the rally vents that go on the side of the fender, obviously. They got these holes and they're a specific place. So what I did was I made a masking tape starting at the body line and at the edge of the fender. I made a template. I drilled them from the holes out from the back side, transferred them over to the new one, marked the holes where the holes are going to be on the new one before we go cutting holes in a brand new fender. It's kind of unnerving, but it's one of those distinguishing parts of a rally Challenger is that rally scoops, and it's something I want back on the car in the end. Next step, what we're going to do next. have a couple choices here. One is we know we have to replace the frame rail on this side and that side. This side here, in order to get the total how this thing's going to line up and get all the gaps right, I need to finish the work on this frame rail and this inner fender. Well, I have the floor out of the car right now, still have it braced across. Everything's bolted down. The back of the frame is there's a hole that goes through that is lined up with another hole there, and then it's bolted where the K-member belt bolts at the front. So we've got reference point, plus I have several bracing, and I'll add some more bracing. But I think that's one of the next steps, is one of the possible next directions, is taking out and replacing that frame rail on this side. I can replace the frame rail, temporarily leave the old apron in here, clamp it up or sheet metal screw it together just to get the alignment to go and make sure everything's lined up, check across, make sure it's square, because that side has an entire replacement OER, total frame and inner fender already together. The other thing that needs to be replaced is this upper and lower cowling. The upper and lower cowling, the upper's not a big deal because it fits on top of the lower, but the lower needs a reference point. That reference point is the floor. This is what I was telling you earlier, how I think about this stuff and how it goes together and try to work it out. Well, the floor reference is going to be your front bottom firewall. So in order to do this, to replace that, I need to have the floor in. Well, in order to get to the back side of the frame, it's going to be easier to do it with the floor out. And the frame welds to the floor. So when I trace everything, I could trace the frame and be able to weld it when I put the floor in. Get my drift? So we're aiming more towards that frame in the front to start. Okay? Let's move around the back here. The other possible next, see, this is a pile of parts right here. This is what my floor looks like. I got to clean it up, and then another pile of rust and clean it up. But eventually we're going to be rust free. So the other side I have to do is this quarter panel and inner and outer wheelhouse on this side. Just like the other side, I went ahead and got the Dynacorn inner and outer one piece wheelhouse. Just don't want to mess with the measurements. Originally I thought about putting a mini tub in it, but to be honest, with all the freaking work I've done in replacing frame rails and keeping everything tight, I want to make sure everything's lined up. If I want to put the mini tubs in later, it is something I could do later. I have the kit from US Car Tool, and I can add it later, but it also includes cutting into the brand new frame in order to move the leaf springs over. So I think we might just enjoy a moderate sized tire at first. Let's get this car back square and in shape, rust free. Let's do that first. This side, I don't have to replace that inner door jamb, so that's a plus. So I can put the fender on and leave the door attached. We'll spin the car around and we'll work on the other side. These are some of the things that I'm working on right now. Once again, I'm glad that you all came by PQ Speed Shop. Check out Project Challenger. Please subscribe, tell your friends. If you have any questions, if you need some inner and outer wheelhouses, I got some for sale, AMDs and Good Marks. If you just need one, they'll work just fine. If you need both of them, it may be an issue. But hit me up on the email, motoman172@hotmail.com. Ask me about the wheelhouses. I'm going to have more parts cutting loose here, extra stuff that I bought that I don't need anymore. And I'm going to have more and more of that as time goes on. But that right now I have 2 sets of inner and outer wheelhouses for both sides of the car. And they are available. Hit me up. We'll make a deal. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time. Peace.